In our journey so far, we've seen HR evolve from invisible welfare duties to structured management. We met early trendsetters, who didn't just build companies, they built people-first philosophies. We saw how science and empathy began shaping workplaces. But today, we shift focus. Because HR didn't rise quietly, it rose from the sounds of machines, megaphones, and mass protests. This episode is about how unrest created structure, how the struggles of workers carved the path for what we now call human resource management. Before India was free, its factories were not. Colonial industries, especially cotton mills and plantations, were notorious for brutal work hours, unsafe conditions, and meager pay. There was no grievance cell, no compliance, just survival. But resistance brewed quietly, and then loudly. In the heart of colonial Madras, thousands of workers at the Buckingham and Carnatic Mills walked out. Their demand? Humane hours, the right to rest, fair wages. The strike lasted weeks and shook the British administration. This was one of the earliest mass strikes in South India, not led by politicians, but by the people who spun the threads of empire. It laid the foundation for unionization in the South, pushing lawmakers to consider a legal identity for labor voices. A few years later, the Trade Unions Act of 1926 was born. Similarly, Bombay, the city of mills, erupted in protest. Over 150,000 mill workers went on a 6-month strike led by unionist SS Mirarkar. The issue wasn't just wages, it was dignity. The strike saw violent clashes, but it also marked the arrival of labor as a political force. It wasn't just resistance, it was a demand to be recognized as a stakeholder in the economy. It highlighted the urgent need for industrial dispute resolution, eventually leading to the Industrial Disputes Act of 1947. Which introduced conciliation, arbitration, and grievance mechanisms that HR teams still use today. The law stepped in, not to control workers but to protect them, and with every new act, the responsibilities of personnel officers grew. HR now had a legal spine. The Trade Unions Act of 1926 legalized and safeguarded collective bargaining. The Industrial Disputes Act of 1947 structured how disputes must be handled. The Factories Act of 1948 brought in workplace safety and welfare norms. And the Minimum Wages Act of 1948 introduced dignity through fair compensation. These weren't just policies. They were the earliest chapters of India's HR manual, written in struggle, signed in law. Post-independence, one company stood out for evolving beyond compliance: Hindustan Unilever, or HUL. In the 1980s, with rising union activism, HUL made a bold decision: engage, not evade. Joint consultative committees allowed workers to participate in decision-making. Vocational upskilling helped workers grow beyond their current roles. Open-door communication created trust in uncertain times, and mutual gains bargaining replaced they use versus them mindset. The impact? Industrial peace was sustained even during tense political periods. HUL became a model for trust-based industrial relations, and management institutes began citing it as a live lab for modern HR. The learning here is, HR doesn't prevent conflict, it teaches us how to navigate it, with empathy, structure, and shared goals. HR didn't begin in boardrooms, it began in break rooms, in picket lines, in dusty mill compounds where people fought not for perks, but for basic dignity. Every HR policy today, from grievance redressal to maternity leave, echoes a fight that came before. A strike, a protest, a speech that refused to go unheard. The evolution of HR wasn't just a shift in strategy, it was a shift in humanity. From control to care, from command to collaboration, from silence to voice. In our next chapter, we uncover how the science of human behavior stepped into the factory floor and transformed HR into a truly human endeavor. Stay with me as we keep decoding HR, one cubicle at a time. This is Behind the HR Cubicle by Heena Rai.